Yeah, we got to talk about this. Congressional Black Caucus to support spying powers used on BLM activists. Yippee! My white ass is staying sat. You gonna criticize them, white boy? The Congressional Black Caucus is, we'll say, disproportionately Israel aligned. We'll say that. That's the language we'll use. Yeah. Clean reauthorization of FISA Section 702. That's cool, man. Meanwhile, 20 Republicans voted no for the clean extension for 18 months. Republicans. Well, this was the one in the middle of the night. There was a later one. We need to catch up on this. There's a lot. There's a lot. Extremely rare Republican dub. Let's let the stage be set by a video. Basically, the gist of it, and it's insane that this happened. Like, I genuinely can't believe how shameless they are, how evil they are. But Mike Johnson, in an effort to obliterate our constitutional rights and protections and allow FISA Section 702 not only to be expanded, but also to expand the range of who they can surveil, Mike Johnson brought everyone together at midnight, these old men, for a secret vote.
The Republicans have called Congress back into
I'm sorry about the audio. Deal with it.
session at midnight to cast a secret vote to reauthorize FISA. This would give Donald Trump the power to surveil or collect data on Americans through a backdoor. There really is not a philosophical debate here. A yes vote is a vote to give Donald Trump more power over American citizens. A no vote is a vote to stand up to Donald Trump. Every Democrat should be a no on the reauthorization of FISA.
And yet,
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to the chairwoman of the Rules Committee, this process stinks. And she thanks all of her colleagues for coming together to trying to work out this deal. As far as I can tell, there's a handful of people, in a back room somewhere who put this together. I mean, some of this has been is handwritten. This was not the result of everybody participating in a process, in an open and transparent process. This is a backroom deal. It's 11:40, and people are going to see this for the very first time. Some of us, myself included, was hoping that we would have a serious warrant requirement in Section 702. I mean, I talked to a lot of my very conservative Republican colleagues, and they agreed with me that was something that they thought was important. And this so-called warrant requirement in this draft that you just gave us has nothing to do with Section 702. It is already the law that if the FBI has probable cause, they can go to court and seek a warrant. What we are trying to solve is a different problem.
how to do that without a warrant.
Section 702 takes in a massive amount of U.S. person information, and nothing in this bill stops the government from searching it or requires them to go to a judge. I mean, and again, the gentleman from Georgia, who the chairwoman says knows everything about everything, let me ask, I mean, is there anything new in this bill that requires a warrant to query U.S. persons in Section 702?
No. Yeah. The first vote didn't go through. They had a second vote from 2:15 to 2:45 a.m. Again, insane. The only reason they would do this is because Mike Johnson thought they could get it through quickly without media paying attention. And also, if he called it that late, more Republicans would come than Democrats, and he could force it through. The Congressional Black Caucus trying to clean their hands. Yeah. Why would more Republicans come than Democrats? Because it's the middle of the night and they got the text messages earlier. It's very scummy shit, man. Because they would have been privately discussing doing this beforehand, but the Democrats wouldn't have been. It's literally just like, oh, try to sneak one in, you know? Also, Democrats are older. That's also true, yeah. The Congressional Black Caucus has serious reservations about Section, 702, but then they voted in favor of it, I guess. I don't know. Seems like kind of dishonest to me, in my opinion, a little bit. How's Fox News framing this?
I'm Chad Pergram, and it's time to get with the program. Well, what is FISA Section 702? This is a foreign intelligence surveillance program that's very controversial. What it is designed...
I don't even understand your system of government. Are there not set times where legislative discussion takes place? No. It's all determined by the House Majority Leader, who gets to table bills or set the program for discussion, and Congress has been out on vacay for a while, and he can do whatever he wants. It's whenever he calls it, yeah. That's so good and not ripe for abuse. But our Constitution is such an intelligent document. The House makes its own rules every session. Yep.
To do is to pick up the communications, who is talking to who, people abroad, and understand if they're trying to do something nefarious to the United States. But sometimes it picks up the communications of Americans. And some Republicans, and a lot of Democrats as well, say that this goes against the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, which prohibits against illegal searches and seizures.
I think there are very serious privacy implications for Americans. I've said repeatedly, I think there need to be reforms to FISA.
So President Trump used to oppose FISA because he was swept up in this prior to the 2016 election. But now he's imploring Republicans to support this bill and pass it soon. Does it surprise you as the chairman of the committee that this is still having trouble, even though the President of the United States has said, this is what I want, this is what I need, and there are rank-and-file Republicans bucking him?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit surprising, but I think maybe the president's a little bit surprised by that too. But I don't want to dismiss their concerns.
So there's a race to get this done before the Monday night deadline. There's a coalition of Democrats and Republicans who are very concerned that FISA could go dark and expose the U.S. to the possibility of terrorism if this...
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. 100%. For sure.
Well, hello, I'm Chief Congressional...
Okay, that's the same bit. There we go. Get funky with it.
A group of GOP rebels prevented what would have been a 5-year extension of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act in an overnight vote at the House of Representatives. The law, known by the acronym FISA, is set to expire on Monday. The House instead voted to delay that expiration by 10 days to allow for more negotiation time.
Now, the provision at the heart of the debate is Section 702. According to reporting from The Hill, Section 702 allows the government to spy on foreigners located abroad, but it has received pushback from privacy-minded lawmakers on both the left and the right who say the government should need to get a warrant before accessing information on Americans that gets swept up if they communicate with foreign targets.
I mean, this is the leader of our party. What are you going to do about not spying on Americans when you have this guy in charge?
The view of Palestinians is simple. Well, the Europeans treated the Jews badly, culminating in the Holocaust, and they gave them our land as compensation. Of course, we say it's our land. The Torah says it, but they don't believe in the Torah. So that's the reason there is not peace. They invent other reasons, but they do not believe in a Jewish state, and that is why we in America must stand strong with Israel through thick and thin.
Just unambiguous biblical justification for the land. Make no mistake, whatever his deep state motivation, Schumer is a Jewish supremacist. He is a bigot. Ideologically, he is probably further right on a lot of Jewish-related ethno-nationalist issues than the Republicans are about white people. He's apparently allowed to get away with a lot more. There hasn't been a cleansing of the non-white population of America yet. Israel seems to get away with quite a bit, with us standing next to them as their allies. Anyway, yeah, one of the reasons why Schumer and people like Schumer are able to get away with as much as they want is because they facilitate this broader shift into the deep state.
Targets.
House Speaker Mike Johnson has advocated repeatedly for FISA, calling it a critical national security tool. President Trump called for getting rid of FISA in the past.
Really? Why do you think so? He's literally like an agent of Israel. He said his job as Senate leader is to protect Israel and to protect America's investment in Israel. He says shit like this, where he says that the Torah's claim of biblical Israel is the reason why we must defend their right to that land. If he was saying this shit about the Bible and white people, no one would have any problem with that description of his behavior.
Arguing that the FBI misused the law to spy on his 2016 campaign. But he's since changed his stance, saying on Truth Social that it keeps Americans safe when used correctly.
The House vote at 1 a.m. Friday morning rejected the proposed 5-year extension of the measure. Nearly all Democrats voted against it, and they were joined by 20 Republicans. Representative Ro Khanna posted this video on X as he headed back to the Capitol last night for the vote.
There really is not a philosophical debate.
You got to
here.
suffer it twice.
A yes vote is a vote to give Donald Trump more power over American citizens. A no vote is a vote to stand up to Donald Trump. Every Democrat should be a no on the reauthorization of FISA.
The 10-day extension on the measure will...
Is extending FISA one of those humiliation ritual things for a president? In my opinion, I think this is one of those rare situations where the deep state really puts their knee on the back of the president's neck, and they're like, this is fucking happening whether you like it or not, essentially. Because they keep re-upping it, dude. They keep re-upping it over and over and over and over again. Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. It keeps finding its way through. A very consistent pattern with basically all post-9/11 surveillance laws, by the way.
Now head to the Senate, where it would need to be approved and sent to President Trump's desk by the Monday deadline. FISA is very controversial.
It is. And to both sides of the aisle.
Yes.
There's a lot, especially because what's come out about the Americans that have had their access, their information accessed, including the president.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pushback about what it was created for in 1978 versus how it's being implemented. And I think the backdoor search part of it was a big issue. The fact that there's a database of tons of Americans' information that then the powers that be will go and comb through after the fact, and the investigation.
So who wants this passed? The deep state.
On some foreign agent is done, but now they have access to all these messages from Americans that were part of this investigation, and they still can use that in any way.
Right.
And I think Americans do want foreign actors surveilled, but also want to feel like they're protected in that. And if there's not any, again, the theme of today's show has been checks and balances.
Yes, yeah.
But if there's not any of that, then why would we want to? I mean, nobody wants to feel like they're in like the Big Brother state.
Right. Yes, I agree with that. I mean, warrantless surveillance is an incredibly tricky topic because of the necessity of it for foreign actors, right? Mm-hmm. International actors, but getting information from the American people or using the FISA court in an abusive way, the way it had been used.
Oh, right, the deep state, another catch-all word. It's pretty descriptive. I mean, we just got off an article where the Madison Square Garden executive was using an incredibly complex network of surveillance tools to create profiles on, monitor, and bar people who had no idea they were being surveilled. When I say the deep state, I'm talking about people, or I guess institutions, whose corporate or political interests don't really have much to do with the surface level of the American culture war, the back and forthing of Democrats and Republicans, but the underlying mechanisms of how state power reifies itself. Like, a good example of this would be how, whether Republicans or Democrats are in charge, there are uncannily similar attitudes towards, say, policing, or the rights and limitations on our intelligence agencies, or what our military can or can't do, you know? I'm not saying there's a perfect one-to-one synchronicity, like Republicans mostly voted in favor of this midnight 5-year extension and Democrats mostly voted against it, but there has been a pretty bad, like, here's a great example, okay? The Democrats, by and large, are not opposed to the Iran war ideologically. They disagree with the way in which Trump has conducted it. Schumer and Jeffries have both expressed explicit criticism of the illegal war and the way Trump has conducted it, the procedure that he has taken, the fact that he's axed Congress out, the fact that he's conducting it ineffectively, that U.S. lives have been lost, stuff like that, right? But the underlying ideological argument for the war, which is that Iran must not be allowed to have nuclear material no matter what, and that our intervention might be necessary to prevent it, anything goes as long as we're preventing it, that argument is bipartisan among Democratic and Republican politicians. Now, it's not bipartisan in the American public, not even close. Likewise with Israel, the Democratic constituency is not pro-Israel at all. The Democratic political consensus, however, is still pretty fucking pro-Israel. This is what stuff that I mean when I say the deep state. I mean like the political and corporate interests in the government that go beyond the surface level of what they say they want and what they appeal to and how they politicize their actions and like how they advocate for their positions. That's why it's called the deep state, Intelligence communities, likewise, they have their own interests.
against the 2016 Trump campaign and Carter Page and the use of those FISA warrants to spy on the president's campaign. That's what we don't want. And we don't want Americans surveilled without their knowledge either. We don't want that. So yeah, there do need to be reforms. But again, classic Congress.
Classic. Every day, kicking the can. 10 days is wild. When that's I was like, 10 days is not, that's
the best agreement they could get, right?
10 days is like, just, you could have went a solid 2 weeks.
Right, nope.
10 days is so.
They love a budget.
But the main interest of the deep state and the normal state don't collide at all? I'm not sure what you mean. What normal state?
They love a deadline. If there's a deadline to something, then Congress is going to start doing stuff. So yeah, right now it's Friday. The Senate is going to be in. They're going to have to pass this. It'll get to the president. The extension, I imagine, will continue. But they did it. They actually did it like by voice vote last night at the end of the night. Like they were.
True, our politics is right wing. I think when we're talking about the interests of the deep state, I think it's a bit of a misnomer to think of it as like being more right wing than people otherwise are. It's not about right wing or left wing. It's about the tendency for bureaucracies to reaffirm their own existences. You know, like the Department of Defense, and Eisenhower warned about this, has only been getting larger with time, whether or not we're in a war. You know, we won the Cold War. We now have uncontested supremacy over the earth. And what happened to the DoD? Well, it didn't get that much smaller. It certainly isn't now. For some reason, our beefing with, I don't know, like insurgents in the Middle East somehow equates to an equivalent amount of military spending that we had to push when we were in the Vietnam War. Like, why is the Pentagon so fucking wealthy, man? What are they doing with all that? Well, it's not because the Pentagon is full of right-wingers, though it is, but it's not because of that. It wouldn't matter if it was filled with left-wingers. It's because you've given a bunch of power to a bureaucracy, and the first aim of a bureaucracy is to grow and reaffirm itself, to justify its budget. This happens in corporations all the time. You give a department, you know, it could be R&D, sales, whatever. You give them a budget, and you say, if you don't use that budget, you don't need it, you know, spend it or lose it. They have to spend, spend, spend. Not only do you spend, you justify additional spending. You make reasons, you give excuses why you need more money, even if you don't, because if you don't make those excuses, you might lose out on competitive funding to other departments that are also trying to push for additional spending. So you try to spend as much as you can, and you grow and you grow and you grow like a cancer. This is what happens to a poorly regulated bureaucracy. And unfortunately, America's political bureaucracy is both extremely unregulated and also like unbelievably powerful, like the biggest on earth, easily relative to the space that it occupies. So it's not about being right wing, you know? I guess to put it more like concretely, we are not pro-Israel as a government because the people in our government are right wing, you know? Obama personally was not that pro-Israel. In fact, based on what we know about his interactions with Netanyahu, they didn't like each other, and Obama was genuinely not that interested in maintaining that prior relationship that we had with Israel. But the underlying systems in America, everything below Obama, the administrative state, the lobbyists, the consultants, the corporations, the MIC, all of them, they remained what they were. The momentum continued, not because of politics, but because of inertia. Does that make sense? That's why FISA is going to get re-upped. That's why this is going to keep happening over and over and over and over and over again. Because whether Democrats or Republicans are in charge, whether the president or the Congress or whatever are right-wing or left-wing, at the end of the day, the bureaucracy wants the ability to conduct warrantless surveillance of U.S. citizens. You know, that's it. It goes beyond, which is why, like, you have to look underlying, you have to look at an incentives basis, right? A systematic level. It goes beyond just like what people say they want. Middle management. Yeah, no, I mean, it does come down to that, which means that solutions to this problem have to come from, I wouldn't say come from a middle management level, but they have to acknowledge the middle management in a more particular way than a lot of people are comfortable with. A lot of people want to, I think, you know? But if you're ever frustrated with like, I don't get it, we voted for this guy and that guy and nothing really changed. Why is it then that over the past 50 years, the official positions of the leadership of the United States have whiplashed back and forth so much, but the underlying path that we've been on has been the same? Why? Like with Trump, you know? As soon as Trump took charge, both in his first term and his second term, Trump as a person and his personal interests are wildly different than everyone before him. Trump is nothing like Bush, nothing like Obama, nothing like Clinton or Bush Sr. or Reagan. He is a very unique person. But in both presidencies, a bunch of people around Trump, not immediately around, like at the cabinet level, but, you know, the financiers or the econ middlemen or the analysts or the consultants, the lobbyists, they just kept on going, didn't they? Silicon Valley kept on going. Wall Street kept on going. Intelligence communities kept on going. Even after Trump gutted the FBI, kept on going. There is inertia to these bureaucracies. Trump can, you know, play with the steering wheel all he wants, but at the end of the day, the rudder's broken, man. The ship is moving that away because the current pulls it that away. The winds blow it that away, okay? I feel like most people understand now that the two parties aren't very different, but we're talking about one level deeper. Even if the Democrats were very different, it wouldn't be enough, because then they'd take the wheel and they would also find it broken. That's the difference. It's not just that the Democrats are, you know, maliciously abstemious or weak or complicit or paid opposition or whatever. It goes beyond that. Even if they weren't, the rudder is broken. The solution cannot come through electoralism. Electoralism sets the stage. It gives you protections. It gives you time. It allows you to make, you know, some changes. It's good to be captain, right? It's good, even if the rudder is broken, it's good to have the wheel. But that is not like where the fundamental solutions come in. I care about electoralism not because I think they're going to fix these problems, but because I think it's important to avoid the worst case scenario, and because I think it's important to have agreeable people in office, because there are sometimes key issues where people in power have the ability to make critical changes. So you want more of us to be in middle management? No, you're not listening. It wouldn't matter. If you joined the middle management, you would just become them. You can't steer it. The current steers it. You're a drop of water in the ocean. That's not how it works. It has to be approached from an incentive level. It's not a machine that is controlled by the whims and wishes of the people in the machine. You know? It is like if you sit at the head of a threshing machine, the only thing you can do with it is thresh. There's no version of a threshing machine. There's no way you can control it in a way that plants seeds rather than threshes. You know? Like you can, maybe if you can, what's a threshing machine? It's a machine that cuts the plants. All it can do is cut the plants, okay? But if you're trying to stop the threshing, you can take over the machine and stop or slow it down. And that's good. And that's why you want to participate. You can do things to the machine, but the machine is a threshing machine, and you need to plant plants. You don't need to cut them up right now. Didn't Zoe Baker say this? Yeah, well, and she was correct. I don't know what you want. So that's why we care about electoralism? Yes, and it's very important. It's very, very important. You have to control the threshing machine. But, yeah, it's just important to understand that's not the long game. Our plans are measured in centuries. I work in state government, and I found there are certain appointed officials in the executive branch that have more power than the legislators. 100%, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And oftentimes the people who directly advise and staff for powerful Congress people, members of the House or Senate, are extremely well-connected insiders who basically just write the bills they sign off on, you know? Like the senators, the Congress people, they don't even read the bills they're given. They're told whether or not they support it based on the interest of the people who support them. This is why overturning Citizens United and disallowing the revolving door is so important. Yeah, getting rid of Citizens United would be like a incentives level change, right? Like that would be a structural change that goes beyond just putting good people in power. It would change the way the ocean works, you know? It would fix things in a way that no amount of goodwill or good faith from the participants in the system could ever fix. So hopefully we'll get that. I don't know. Hopefully people don't interpret this as me being pessimistic, you know? Because I'm not trying to be. It is still valuable to participate, you know? It's not impossible to overturn Citizens United? No, not at all. But we're a long way out from the political culture that would allow that. I think that willful and intelligent civil participation is probably the best thing that you can do day to day to improve the future in this country, for as many people as possible to know why things are the way they are and how they got there. Thankfully, I think even the average American understands, like, climate change, for example. The world will be made worse because of climate change. And when that happens, most people alive on Earth will know who's responsible. Thankfully, I think that most people have a pretty clear, like, message on that. You know? Most people have a pretty good understanding of, like, the underlying incentive structure that led to this. So on some issues, it's good. Just imagine how grim it would be, a world where climate change gets much worse and nobody knows why. Isn't that, like, fucking despair-inducing? Like, imagine the corporate propaganda was so effective that no one even ever heard about climate change. It was never introduced as a concept. So when the world gets worse and everything gets warmer and more unmanageable from a climate perspective, everyone just has, like, no clue why, and the corporations and the governments are able to effortlessly steer the conversation in a way that minimizes the fallout against them. You know what I mean? Thankfully, that's not the case. Thanks to decades of work from climate scientists and activists, it is basically a household subject. Even very stupid people and even conservatives are aware of the basic talking points of people concerned about the climate, which means that it's much easier for the average person to understand who's at fault when things go down. Does that make sense? I want that level of understanding and more, but for all of the great crises we're to deal with. Like the insolvency crisis, or what's happening right now in the Strait of Hormuz and everything that's going to happen downstream of that. I want it to happen for, like, the climate crisis causing mass refugees, mass panic, energy grid blackouts. I just want people to be aware of why it's happening and who's at fault and what needs to be done and what can be prevented in the future. So class consciousness, yes, in so many words that. I just think that it's important to spell it out, because if I just said I want people to be class conscious, I don't think that would, like, explain really what I mean in detail. Anyway, let's finish this video.
Up all night, and then they're all like, yeah, we'll phone this one in at the end here. And
I just thought the 1 a.m. decision was wild.
But that's the thing, right? Like, Congress likes to do difficult things late at night on deadlines in the darkness of night. Now, this is just an extension for 10 days, but there are real reforms that should happen to FISA, to that system, to the court system.
That should be attached to this bill.
That should be attached to what passes in the long run. The 10-day extension right now, that's just a negotiation technique.
Got it. I wonder, should the president at this point get way more heavily involved? I mean, he's the one that was affected by this in the last decade. And so I think that he should, the way that he's involved in the negotiations about reopening the government, the way he was involved in negotiations about funding TSA and specifically finding other money out of the big, beautiful bill to pay those guys, he should get in this conversation because it directly...
I've decided I don't care anymore. It's an egregious violation of our civil rights. The fact that it's talked about like it's merely controversial is upsetting to me. Again, it's controversial that, like, murder suicide event that took, like, I don't know what, it's very straightforward, man. It's very evil. Warrantless surveillance is just bad. I don't know what you want. If you really think you're going after terrorists, just get a fucking warrant. Like, there are terrorists and there are good reasons to surveil people. Get a warrant. Get a warrant. Just get a fucking warrant. It doesn't take that long, man. You have judges specifically set aside for the acquisition of these warrants.